So she goes out and tests the carburetor and does all this stuff. The car still doesn't start. So the computer engineer says, well, why don't we all just get out of the car, get back in, and try it again? Okay, so it's not a very good joke, but it illustrates a point that I know this has happened to you before, that you've been running some program or something, and all of a sudden, the program just doesn't seem to work anymore. It seems kind of stuck or something. And what you do is you close it and you open it back up again, and everything seems fine. All right. Well, the key here is that you've got to somehow deduce whether it's that program or it's some underlying cause that's causing that program to go bad. So remember over in the etc init.d directory, okay, there's all these scripts in here to stop, start, and restart processes on the system, like the sendmail process or the line printer daemon or zinetd or whatever. Okay, and there's all these scripts in there that stop, start, and restart those processes. So if you just need to get something running right away, it seems hung, then definitely the right thing to do is just to go ahead and use the script in here and say, say it's the sendmail script that seems hung today. Okay, and so you go in there and you do a restart on that script. And we've done this in the past, but I just wanted to show you again. So we say etc init.d sendmail, and we say restart, and there it goes. It says shutting down sendmail, starting sendmail, and everything. And if sendmail is working now after this, great. You did the right thing. You got sendmail running again, but you still haven't discovered the cause of the problem that made sendmail, go bad, get hung up or whatever. All right, and so keep notes of this. Keep track of this in your notebook and say, well, I had to restart sendmail today, blah, 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 and maybe try and take some notes on what else is going on in the system. And, if the next week it seems kind of like the same problem, but it manifests itself in, the line printer daemon or something stops working, then, take note of that. And it's not the individual pieces like sendmail and LPD and whatever else goes bad. It's some underlying cause that you've got to get to, and the more notes that you take and the more diligent you are about recording information and gathering information when something does go wrong, you're going to be better off. But the good short-term solution is just to take that thing and stop it and then restart it. So if you're trying to kill or stop some process that doesn't have a script in this etc init.d directory, go ahead and use the kill command to kill it, and then just restart it manually by just running it from the command line. Okay? And that's the way that you deal with processes that don't have scripts in this directory. But what I want to get across here that's really important is you never, ever, ever want to use the kill command where you do have a script available to you. Okay, so if I went and instead of saying etc init.d sendmail stop, for instance, if instead of saying that I said kill followed by the process identification number of the sendmail program, well, by using the kill command, I'm not really stopping it gracefully, and I might not be able to restart that process by saying etc init.d sendmail start, for instance. All right, and the reason is there are these things out there called lock files, and these lock files control a lot of these programs, and basically what the lock file is doing is it's not letting sendmail start again because it thinks the old sendmail program is still running because the lock file is there. Okay, and that's a simplification, but that's basically what's happening. And so if you see error messages in your logs that say something about a lock file when you try and start sendmail, well, the reason is that this lock file is present. You need to go find where that lock file is. Maybe it's listed in the error message. Maybe you need to look it up in the man pages or on the web or something, and then look where that lock file is, get rid of it, and then try and start that process again. Okay, so these lock files can prevent you from restarting a process that's been killed incorrectly. Okay, if you just use the kill command instead of using the stop command. One last thing I want to talk about on this topic of stopping, starting, and restarting processes, and then we can wrap up here. Sometimes you track down a problem and it's a configuration file setting. Okay, so you need to change some system-wide configuration file, and you think that's going to solve this problem that you're troubleshooting. All right, so let's try and make this a little more concrete. So say you've got the zinetd.conf file here that controls the Zinet daemon, okay, and say you change something in this file. Okay, so you make some change to this file, and now you want Zinetd to reread this configuration file. Well, how do you do that? Well, one way that you can do it is just restart the Zinetd daemon. Say etc init.d zinetd, restart or something. All right, and that restarting, every time a process starts, every time one of those services starts, it reads its configuration file over again. All right, so that's one way to do it. But by doing a restart, you've interrupted service. So if somebody was using the Zinetd service, then they get interrupted, they can't use it anymore, and then they've got to come back and do it all over again. All right, so a better solution is to do what we call a HUP. All right, and if we look at, you do this by the kill command. Let's do a kill minus L to see all the different kill options. And you'll see number one here is what's called a sig hup, and sometimes it's just called a hup. Okay, and what you do here is you say kill minus 1, and then you follow that by the process ID of the service that you want to hup. So in this case, the ZyNetD, if we look at that process identification number for the ZyNet daemon, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever, then I would say kill minus 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and what that would do is that would hup process 1, 2, 3, 4. And when process 1, 2, 3, 4 gets hupped, what it does is it rereads its configuration file. But it never stops, so service is never interrupted with a hup, whereas it is interrupted with a restart. And for certain things, like when I worked at an internet company and we needed to change some configuration setting on the web servers or whatever, we did that, but we definitely did not restart all the web servers. We just hupped them so they reread the configuration file because we didn't want to disrupt service. Okay, and we didn't want people to log on to our web page and say, well, geez, the web server's not up. This stinks, and then they don't come back anymore. Okay, so the point is, if you have some service that's critical that people are using, and you need that service to just reread its configuration file, you hup the service, and there's no interruption of service time. Well, it's time to wrap up our first nugget on troubleshooting. In this nugget, we tried to go over the types of problems that you might encounter while troubleshooting, whether they're hardware problems or software, configuration problems, that kind of stuff. And we talked about the log files as being tools to gather some information. You can look at the log files and determine whether it's like, a mail error or a cron error or something like that, and that'll help you narrow down your focus as to what is causing the problems. And we talked about some tools that we really learned them before. I was just trying to refresh your memory of things like the ifconfig command, the fscheck command, things like that are tools that you can use to gather information that's not in log files, right? And that still is going to help you determine what the root of the problem is. And finally, we talked about stopping and starting processes as sort of a measure, a temporary measure to keep things running. Even if there is some problem present, a lot of times just stopping and restarting a process is a good way to, just to get it running in the immediate term. And long term, that might not be the best solution, but it helps you, just buys you some time while you're investigating. And lastly, we talked about the hup, which is really just some way to get a process to reread its configuration files. All right, well, I hope you found this nugget informative, and thanks for viewing.